that changed my life.
So, Stephen, where are you from?
Minneapolis.
You are?
Yep.
You work with Mike all the time?
Yep. Cool.
During my gap year, I've learned an indescribable amount from travel throughout the country.
Is Mike teaching you anything? Is he doing some work with you?
Mike has taken me up for a ride, so.
In the pits?
The two pits.
Yeah. That will teach you.
Yep.
That'll teach you everything you need to know about flying. What a cool mentor to have. You're really lucky.
This is like my dream job.
For sure, right?
Yep.
You're doing it. How old are you?
19.
Awesome. What a great place to be.
From watching an air show from a helicopter high above Fort Lauderdale, Florida, to a sunset photo shoot over the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, the following is just a glimpse of how fascinating our world is through my favorite medium, film.
Are you going to school for flying, or what are you doing?
I'm taking a gap year to work with Mike.
Nice.
Next year I'm planning to go to University of Tampa to study film production.
Nice. That sounds fun. You're gonna make movies?
Yeah.
Aviation films, of course.
Yeah.
There you go. Bring your arm and tuck your head forward. We're gonna shut the lid.
Ever since spending 3 weeks in Cuba, I've had a new perspective on what it means to be American, and to be human. In school, we learned that we all have the same basic needs: food, water, shelter, but there's a whole other level of needs: culture, human connection, socialization, enjoyment, creativity, fascination, and a drive to move the world forward, just to name a few. While many regions use certain unique phrases or customs, I started to feel and be treated more like a local when I saw through the differences and just see how daily life connects to our root necessities. Being able to perform crucial actions yourself is a trait I value highly. There's something about being able to do basic, everyday repairs that just feels right. At least knowing enough about all topics to know if this is something you have the agency to do yourself, or if you should consult outside help. I always carry 2 phone chargers when I travel. First, it's convenient just to have one in each bag depending on which is closest, but more importantly, I've straight up left behind a phone charger more than once. It's never happened to me, but I can guarantee you do not want your phone to die while you're traveling. Working in such a fast-paced environment, you always have to be thinking at least 2 or 3 steps ahead. That's why packing properly is critical. Nothing in this world will get you farther than hard work. You can be lucky or talented, but if you don't work hard, you won't get anywhere. If you truly love your job and what you do, you won't work a day in your life. I'm not exactly sure why this is, but I've found oftentimes the more work or activities you have in a day, the more productive you are and the higher quality of work. As activities increase, productivity also increases, until this point, the breaking point, where you get overloaded and productivity sharply decreases. This was true for a good portion of school. Do something that pushes your brain every day. I remember when I first got into film, editing for more than half an hour just made my brain hurt. I thought this was bad, that editing maybe was just not for me. But in reality, it was just building my tolerance and skills. I can now edit significantly faster and more precisely for longer than ever before. With that said, I still prefer the actual film production side, but it's important to have an understanding of all parts of your industry. This is one of my biggest issues with the current education system. We didn't evolve to sit inside for 7 hours a day. Myself being a visual learner, I can understand topics 100 times better and faster if I can actually see and interact with the subject. This is exactly why field trips, international study programs, and internships are great. I had an interesting thought that is, where you've been becomes part of you. Not just metaphorically, like where you've been and who you're around shapes who you are, but also literally. The food you eat makes up who you are. The more places you go and new things you try, the more diversity your body has. With the introduction of cell phones and the internet, we have never become more connected to each other, and it has exponentially increased productivity and coordination throughout the world. Yet with all these new connections, loneliness is at an all-time high.
What do you think are some of the influences on people's well-being that's leading to the higher and higher rates of depression and anxiety?
Well, I'll give you an example of one of the 9 causes that I write about in Lost Connections. We are the loneliest society there's ever been. There's a study that asks Americans, how many close friends do you have who you could turn to in a crisis? And when they started doing this years ago, the most common answer was 5. Today, the most common answer, not the average, but the most common answer is none. Why are we alive? You and me and everyone watching this. Why do we exist? One key reason is that our ancestors on the savannas of Africa were really good at one thing. They weren't bigger than the animals they took down. They weren't faster than the animals they took down, but they were much better at banding together into groups and cooperating. Just like bees evolved to live in a hive, humans evolved to live in a tribe. And if you think about the circumstances where we evolved, if you were cut off from the tribe, you were depressed and anxious for really good reasons. You were in terrible danger. You were about to die. Those are still the impulses we have. We are the first humans ever in the long 2 million year history of our species to try to disband our tribes. And it is making us feel awful.
Frankly, I didn't really understand the value and had too much anxiety when dealing with social engagement.
And I just feel if you don't share and you don't connect, then you're just causing more isolation, and that's a really bad thing for all of us.
Recently, I have found the great benefits simple social interactions can have on daily life. Let's face it, towards the end of high school, I had become pretty burnt out. I needed a break. I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't really see the value in many of the courses I was taking. I continued through though, and finished my senior year the strongest ever. That year was part of a monumental change in my development, where my thinking changed from what I was to who we are. No longer were we separate groups trying to fit in, we were all one class about to graduate from one school. There were several times in my academic career where I considered what it would be like to change schools. Was this the best fit for me? But I love where I am today. And would I really be able to say that if I had changed the course of my journey, much less had the means to think of such metacognition? The term no regrets has come up a few times.
No regrets.
While learning from mistakes is huge in moving forward in life, there is literally nothing you can do to change what has happened. After a break from school for a year, there actually are quite a few things I miss from what I used to dread. Being with others in a learning environment allows compound growth that could otherwise not be attained. I would think to myself, am I really getting any better on my own? Being a self-taught filmmaker, it's all I've really known. Knowing the state of the film world today is crucial. Just like with musical styles, there are film styles too. Whether it's consciously decided or not, the films we produce today are in conversation with all previous films. Some more than others, but every film ever made has helped us get to where we are today. Will there be an end? Have we reached the epitome of filmmaking? Well, as long as people still have a need to learn and be entertained, there will always be a need for films. If you're considering taking a gap year, here's my advice. You need to be a highly motivated individual to capture all the benefits this year can offer. My former gymnastics coach told me, I wish more people would take gap years. Too many people go to college not knowing what they want to do and burn out. A gap year can be a great time to discover who you are and where you want to go in life. In many ways, this was the most challenging yet most rewarding year of my life. Depending on what you do, there will likely be significantly more free time than a traditional education. This is where self-motivation is key. For the first several months, I was really enjoying the ability to sleep in on a Monday morning, something that could have never been done during the school year. Oftentimes I would wake up and sit on my phone for half an hour before moseying on downstairs to make breakfast. I didn't really know what to do when I had nothing scheduled for an entire day. I watched a video that really changed my morning routine though. It was a scientific finding that if you wake up and sit in bed, it tricks your brain into thinking you're going to sleep again, so it starts a second sleep cycle that can last up to 6 hours. That's right, a simple 5-second groggy decision can dramatically impact the productivity of your day. I decided I'm not going to sit in bed nor check my phone when I wake up. I'm going to go downstairs, drink some water, make breakfast, and then go back upstairs to check my phone. I immediately saw productivity and energy levels increase. I was also sleeping better, being able to wake up naturally earlier, and start to structure my time more wisely. It's daily activities like this where you learn about your mind and body during a gap year. There were some hints at taking a second gap year, but I figured the odds of ever going to college after that point would be slim, and I really want to go to college. I can credit my dad with giving me my first camera to mess around with, but it was around sophomore year in high school where I really got into filmmaking and saw it as a career choice, and an exciting one at that. People would often ask, so you want to go to Hollywood? And my answer was always no. Even before the Me Too movement, I didn't want to be associated with what goes on in that industry. I was watching some YouTube videos on film schools and came across this one from a student who had just graduated from UCLA Film. And she hit the nail on the head as to what I was feeling.
And even though I was going to film school, which was my dream for my entire life, I was so lucky to go, I quickly learned that Hollywood wasn't really what I expected either. You know, I thought it was like all these fun, creative people making their dreams come true, but it was really just a bunch of like executives in their office doing cocaine and people getting jobs because their dad or their cousin worked somewhere.
While there is some really phenomenal talent in Los Angeles, unfortunately, a lot is pushed to the side by who is the loudest. I am very excited for my education at the University of Tampa, and I have a pretty clear vision of where I want to go now thanks to my gap year. I've made so many meaningful connections during my gap year, and they really created an experience I will never forget. My name is Stephen Nye, and I'm searching for the truth in our world through my lens.